So the next part of this lathe project is figuring out why the clutch doesn't work quite properly. So to do that I have to take apart this spider thing that engages the clutch. It turned out to be a real pain to take apart. The pins are held in by these clip things that almost look like E-clips, but they're really hard. They almost like a lock washer, but flattened. Anyways, they took a lot of persuading to get back off again. It finally ended up just grabbing them with a pair of pliers and twisting them and then taking them off. But it took way longer than what I thought it would. This is the part I'm going to work on now. After I get this fixed, it should be ready to install the clutch. This pin goes in here and acts as an adjustment for the clutch tension, and it got popped out too far and then pushed over to the side, so it got worn, and these holes are all egged out. It's egged out there, egged out here, and it's just a mess. And I noticed that this side has a completely blank ear, so I don't know why they did that. If it was for balance or for whatever, maybe some models had 2 pins or whatever. But I figure I can just, rather than fill this hole in, I can make a new hole over here that's the right size, right distance away, and make a new spot for this pin. You can't see because the lighting's terrible, but when we're using the edge finder, I always set my dial at 100, because now no matter which direction I go this way around, that's the direction I want to go. When I get back to 0, I am centered right over the edge, because that's 200 thousandths thick. So I always set my dial at 100, and then one turn gets me, or half a turn gets me back to 0. So now the edge of my part is 0. So to set the depth of my countersink, I'm going to try something I haven't done before. I've got the quill down the bottom of its travel. It's up against the stop. And that's just barely touching there. So now I'm going to go all the way up. Now I can move up the knee, the 680 that I need to go. And then I can feed down with the quill, and I should be right at the correct bottom. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 80. There we go, 680 deep with these little guys back on. These things are such a pain in the neck. I don't know if what they're supposed to be, but the little split ring thing, they're almost like E-clips, like on drum brakes where you're supposed to squeeze them together. But these are hard. They're really stiff, so they don't work well. They're about like a regular snap ring, but there's nothing to grab onto. There's no holes, there's no nothing. So they came off hard, they went back on hard. Really, I'd like snap rings for there, but I'll put it together this way. for now. I have my spring there, right here. There we go. So that should work perfect. One mystery I had was these pile of springs that were in there. Just sort of this mangled mess of springs. And I saw these holes, and it looked like you stand up springs in there. So, and that would sort of keep the clutch discs apart and sit on there and keep them separated. There's a key in the back here. Let me take that out so it works better. They'd go in there and they'd keep the discs from dragging. But you see, they don't really work. Well, actually those do. The replacement ones I got, they just buckle off to the side, so they don't do anything. These ones, a lot of them had little broken pieces stuck into them, almost like they tried to make the springs longer. So I don't know what the deal is with these. I might put them back together with the shorter springs if it seems like they actually don't fall over. So I've got this installed, have my 2 set screws stacked on top of each other. I did decide to put these in. They don't seem like they flip off to the side when they're slightly shorter, so I figured I'd leave them in there. They don't seem like they're that great, but I'll give it a try. And that goes in there. There. So I've been having trouble getting my clutch adjusted right. I watched some A-Bomb's videos and a couple other videos on how these clutch levers work. And what it seems like is my clutch lever, the travel is just way too short. That is engaging the spindle brake. That's just a little bit above horizontal, and that's way lower down in its stroke than the other Monarch lathes I've seen. So, and that's locked in. And since I have such a short stroke, I can't really adjust my clutch properly. So I think I figured out the problem. So this is the arm that actuates the clutch. Comes through here and actually pivots this arm here, and that goes into the insides. Now, if this length was adjustable, like A-bomb's was, it would work better because I could have this up higher and it would just change the position of the handle stroke. So I think this is actually a homemade part. And the reason I think that it's not going to be able to see it on camera, but there's vice jaw marks here and here, and it just, the look of it doesn't quite look professional. It looks homemade. It's a well done homemade thing, but it looks homemade. So I suspect this is a homemade replacement because there's some other damaged pieces on this lathe, and so I think this is one of them. So I'm gonna take out this pin and re-drill a hole further down, and that should get me more stroke for my lever and should make everything work better in theory.
I didn't get a good shot of this on video, but to get enough travel in my lever, my clutch lever, so it didn't hit the chip tray below and still engage the clutch, I had to have the clutch halfway squozen together before I threaded it on. So here the clutch is halfway engaged and it's a real pain in the neck. So that's what's going on here.
So I'm going to get this readjusted. So something's hitting and stopping the clutch from engaging all the way. I can hear a thunk out on this side. So I'm going to open up the cover plate and see if I can see what's going on. So it seems there isn't enough travel in this rod. If you go all the way down, just doesn't kick the clutch over center. Some of that was due to the handle position having the wrong hole. But I think there's also something weird inside. So I'm going to take a look inside and see if I can find out what's going on. It's a little dark down inside, but where it's hitting is down in here. This is the brake cone that comes out of the brake, and it hits this shift fork when it goes down, and this drops down. It really shouldn't hit that because even if it's close or rests on there, this part's spinning and this fork obviously isn't, so it would rub on there. So there's something wrong with the end of this shift rod thing. And it did look like it had the touch of home to it. So I'm going to get that back out and hopefully for the last time I'll get it all back together. So I figured out why my clutch isn't engaging properly. This is the lever that pulls to engage the clutch, and when it rotates it hits on the brake ring here. There's some little wear marks there, and there is that shiny spot here on the fork. So it's been hitting. It obviously shouldn't be hitting. Two options is I could grind this away to relieve it, and that would probably work. But this piece here is definitely a harder piece to replace than this brake band, because this is brake thing is separate. And see, it's hitting up here. So what I'm planning on doing is this is a replacement piece. I don't know if it was originally Monarch or a replacement or somebody made it or found it or did something, but this piece is obviously made to be able to be taken off. So I'm gonna face this back here, just take off some of this, and that way it won't hit the fork anymore. This will still engage the cone, and hopefully my clutch will work without having to be oddly adjusted. So on my other lathe, I just put a chamfer on the back of this piece, so now there's room for the fork, and I checked it and it does engage all the way. It was sort of a guesstimate on whether or not it would actually engage, but it does, and I still have my original shoulder there, so everything else should be set. So now it should be properly clearanced. Didn't like doing this, but I don't know what else I would do besides rebuild the whole thing. So I think this was the easiest and best solution for what I had. So now when I engage the clutch, you can see this comes close to hitting the shoulder, but it doesn't seem like it actually hits, because when I spin it, it doesn't drag or scrape, but it comes probably closer than what I'd like. But it doesn't seem like it's actually hitting. So clearance is clearance, as they say. So, but yeah, so now my lever works properly, engages, my brake works by lifting up. My clutch in the back, I can just thread on. I don't have to like halfway compress it, because that's just a pain in the neck. You shouldn't have to do that. So now I can thread this on and off. Clutch works. So now, for the second time, or third time, or however many times, I think I'm done in here for now. I am going to run it for a bit and then change the oil and do some other stuff and check my magnets. They did pick up some more metal filings, which is a little bit disheartening, but that's why they're there. So I'm going to put the top back on and we should be ready to roll. So the clutch is finally all done and adjustable. You can see it engages all the way, it kicks over center, and I don't really want to unthread it and thread it back on again, but now I can just thread it on and off if I want to take it apart. Initially, when I first had this set up, I had to squeeze these part way in before I threaded the whole thing together, because there's a set of threads here, and the pull rod is also threaded, and they thread together at the same time, so it sort of fixes, the amount of travel you have, the amount of space you have here. So I was able to get it shorter by squeezing it together, partially so I needed less travel of the handle. See, here's where I moved the hole. That's maybe an inch that I had moved the hole. So what that did was it let me have the handle start up higher. So I had more travel before I hit the lower chip tray on the lathe. So there is still a slight rattle from the clutch, but not too bad. And without the drive feeds engaged, the headstock is really quiet. So, should be full speed. Yeah, so that's top speed. So that's fairly quiet. There is some noise coming from this gear train here. They are all straight cut gears, so there will be some noise. Some noise coming from down there. I don't know if that's... So I don't know if the noise coming from the speeds and feeds gearbox is just the gears meshing inside there, because there obviously are a whole bunch of straight cut gears in there which will make some noise, or if there's some other bearings wrong in there too. But for now, I'm going to leave this. Maybe this winter, again, I'll take this whole thing apart and get this part of the lathe cleaned up now that the headstock is in good shape. So, yeah, that's what's next, is to get this setup figured out. Yeah, I don't want to take this apart now because I don't really have time to actually work on it. So I could have time to take it apart and then I'd have my lathe inoperable again. So it'll stay together for the summer. If I have a couple of small little projects, I'll be able to use the lathe for that. And then if I get some free time, chunk of free time, I'll be able to take this gearbox off, get it all cleaned up, check out the bearings, maybe take the apron off too. So this project, the headstock project, is done for now. It's obviously not, the lathe obviously isn't done, but taking a break on this, gonna go on to working on other things.